Let's talk about factoring quadratic equations using the AC method. First, let's recall that the standard form of a quadratic equation is ax squared plus bx plus c equals 0. A is the coefficient of our first term of x squared. B is the coefficient of our second term, x. And c is our constant term. Now let's look at an example of how we can factor a quadratic equation using the AC method. I have an equation here of x squared plus 7x plus 10 equals 0. And so A is equal to 1, B is equal to 7, and C is equal to 10. Now in our first step, we want to multiply our A and C values together. So 1 times 10 equals 10. Next, we want to find factors of 10 that add up to 7. So I've written some factors here of 10. 10 times 1 equals 10, and 10 plus 1 equals 11. But 11 is not equal to 7, so we can't use those two factors. The next factors I've written are 2 and 5. 2 times 5 is 10, and 2 plus 5 equals 7, which is equal to our B value. So in our next step, we want to rewrite our equation. So we have x squared plus 7x plus 10 is equivalent to x squared plus 2x plus 5x plus 10. If you'll notice, 2x plus 5x is equal to our middle term of 7x. Now we want to group the first two terms together and the last two terms together. So we have x squared plus 2x grouped together, and we have 5x plus 10 grouped together. And now we want to factor our group terms. So the greatest common factor between x squared and 2x is x. So when we factor x out of these two terms, we have x times x plus 2. And for our last two terms, the greatest common factor between 5x and 10 is 5. So we have 5 times x plus 2. Now if we look at these two terms together, we can see that they both have a common factor of x plus 2. So we can factor x plus 2 out of each of those terms. So we have x plus 2 factored out, and we're left with x plus 5 inside these brackets. And so now we can conclude that x squared plus 7x plus 10 factors to x plus 2 times x plus 5. Here's another example of factoring a quadratic equation using the AC method. We have the equation x squared minus 12x plus 27. A is equal to 1, B is equal to negative 12, and C equals 27. So in our first step, we want to multiply our A and C together. So 1 times 27 equals 27. Now we want to find the factors of 27 that add up to negative 12. So here are some of the factors of 27. We have 3 and 9. 3 times 9 is 27. 3 plus 9 equals 12, but 12 does not equal negative 12. Next, I have negative 3 and negative 9. Negative 3 times negative 9 is positive 27. And negative 3 plus negative 9 is negative 12, which is equal to our B value. So now we can rewrite our equation. So we can rewrite x squared minus 12x plus 27 as x squared minus 3x minus 9x plus 27. And we can see that negative 3x and negative 9x add up to negative 12x. So now we can group our four terms. We'll group the first two terms together and the last two terms together. So we have x squared minus 3x plus negative 9x plus 27. Now we can factor our group terms. So our first group, we have the greatest common factor is x. So when we factor x out of x squared and negative 3x, we have x times x minus 3. And in our last two terms, we can factor out a negative 9 out of both of these terms. So we have negative 9 times x minus 3. Now we can look at these two factors as a term and these two factors as a term. And we want to factor those two factors. So x minus 3 and x minus 3 are both common factors of both of these terms. So we can factor out x minus 3 and we're left with x minus 9. So we have x squared minus 12x plus 27 factors into x minus 3 times x minus 9. Now here is another example of a quadratic equation we can factor using the AC method. I have 2x squared minus 19x plus 24. Our A is 2, our B is negative 19, and our C is 24. So now we can multiply our A and C values together. 2 times 24 equal 48. So now we need to find the factors of 48 that add up to negative 19. So I've started writing some of the factors of 48 here. Negative 2 times negative 24 equal 48, and negative 2 plus negative 24 equal negative 26. But negative 26 is not equal negative 19. Next I have negative 3 and negative 16. Negative 3 times negative 16 equal 48. Negative 3 plus negative 16 equal negative 19, which is equal to our B term. And so these are the factors that we can use to finish factoring our quadratic equation. And now we can rewrite our equation. 2x squared minus 19x plus 24 can be rewritten as 2x squared minus 3x minus 16x plus 24. Now we'll group the first two terms together and the last two terms together. So we have 2x squared minus 3x grouped together and negative 16x plus 24 grouped together. And now we want to factor our grouped terms. So a common factor of 2x squared minus 3x is x. And so when we factor x out of 2x squared minus 3x, we get x times 2x minus 3. And a common factor of negative 16 and 24 is negative 8. And when we factor negative 8 out of negative 16x plus 24, we get negative 8 times 2x minus 3. Now, out of these two terms, we can factor 2x minus 3. So when we factor 2x minus 3, we get 2x minus 3 times x minus 8. So we can conclude that 2x squared minus 19x plus 24 factor into 2x minus 3 times x minus 8.